Hello and welcome to another Blender tutorial. Today we're going to try to do one of the new features of Blender 2.61, and that's dynamic paint. And we're going to try to replicate something that Micah H. Webb did on his website. He did use man candy and made him walk up to a block of ice, touch it, and it froze his whole body. So we're going to use the dynamic paint to do that same feature. And he didn't show a tutorial on how to do it, so I tried to figure it out and make a tutorial for it so that we can do the same thing that he did. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay. What we're going to start off with is our default scene here, the default cube. We'll leave the cube, but let's set up our camera. Let's go to let me turn on screencast keys so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. Now, one on your numpad and Control-Alt-0. Select the camera, G to grab, position the camera, select the cube, size it up a bit. Okay, now what we want to do is add a backdrop. So let's go to 3 to side view, make sure that cursor is lined up. 1, just get rid of that camera so we don't see it. We'll go back into camera view by hitting 0 and Shift A, add a plane, smooth the plane down, size it up to somewhere in there. Put it right underneath the cube. And now tab into edit mode. Let's hide the cube. Oh, what am I doing? Hide the cube. Let's select these 2 vertices there. Size them up. Say right about there. Go into line select mode. Shift select this line here. E to extrude. Z for the Z axis. Extruded way up here somewhere. And now let's add a subsurface modifier, level 2, smooth shading. Let's get a tab out of edit mode. Okay, tab back into edit mode. Now let's select all these outer lines, like all these edge loops here, and bring up our end panel, scroll up, turn the mean crease all the way up on them. Okay, that looks about right. Now let's put our cube back in there. This is covering the cube quite a bit right there. So what we want to do is let's select these lines here. This whole face basically. Pull this out here somewhere like that, and then let's go to face select mode, just select that face and draw it back like that. Now we get a little bit exposed, but just tab out of edit mode, select our cube, raise it up a bit, and right about there is fine. Okay, now we got our backdrop, which is showing off the camera here. So now we gotta tab back into edit mode a minute and select. Go to line select mode, select this line and this line, and drag it over. There. Now it's fully in our camera view. Now let's add a material to this plane here. Okay, new material. Let's call it backdrop. and under diffuse, select the ramp and change the alpha on that first channel all the way up on channel 0, and then on channel 1 we'll change the color down a little bit to gray color, so it's not fully white. Change this to B-spline, and we'll just add in a gradient here and move this over somewhere. Yeah, something like that. Okay, now if we render this, let's take the cube out so we won't render it, and we get something like that. Okay, now let's mess with our light. Select our light up there. The lamp should be, if you don't already have one, just add one, but we want it to be a sun lamp. Energy value of 1 is fine. Make sure you got ray shadow on. And then let's also move over to our environment tab, or our world settings, I mean. And turn on environment lighting and set it at a 0.340. And back to our lamp. Let's adjust the direction of the lamp. Let's rotate it to where it's going that direction there. Let's go to the side view and let's rotate it to where it's straight down. Okay, now back to camera view. Let's render that. Oh, yeah, that's good enough. Okay, now we got our lighting set up, we got our backdrop. Now let's focus on our cube. Go to the cube, let's set up a material for it. The material, let's name it Ice Cube. And we're going to make the diffuse color a blue color. Alright, and then we're going to leave the specularity at 0.5, turn on transparency, ray trace. Let's drag this up here so we can see it better. Oops. There we go. And turn the alpha value all the way down and set the index of refraction at 2.5. Set this to cube so it looks like what it should look like. Now we got to add a texture to it. Image or movie. Select both here so you can see the result. And we're going to open a texture I made. You can make it, or you can download. I'll add a link in the description. It's called Cracks. You can see it there, hopefully. And I'll let you download it also, as well as the .blend files so you can play with them. But I just made it in you can make it in GIMP. I think I made that one in paint.net. Okay, so now let's this image is a bit big, so let's go to image sampling, and or not image sampling, I mean image mapping, and go down to crop, and we're going to crop it at a 0.3 on both the X and Y. So it looks like that. Make this cube. It can be generated under mapping coordinates. Generated cube. And now let's turn our influences on. We don't want color. We want it to influence the normals. Okay, and let's go ahead RGB to intensity and make this a white color down here. Okay, and set this normal value up to about a 3.5 or so, somewhere in there. And then we're going to add another lamp in the scene here, right inside the cube. So set your cursor there inside the cube, about center of the cube. So numpad 3, make sure. Looks like the cursor is about centered. Okay, now Shift A, add another lamp, and this will be a point lamp, and we will leave the settings alone. It should be energy at 1, no shadows, fine. And now if we render it with the cube, we can get an idea what it's going to look like. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and let it render all the way. Okay, this cube, you can see what it looks like. It's not quite looking like a block of ice yet. It's too perfect. We need to make some more adjustments here. One thing I can do too to speed up our render time a little bit is take off some of these settings we don't really need. Anti-aliasing, let's turn that down to 5 and set it to box. That will speed it up a little. Under, see, performance, I'm going to set this up to 15 on the tiles. For my computer, that works pretty good. Under shading, I'm going to turn off environment and subsurf. Color management, I don't need all those. And that will help speed it up a bit. Okay, now let's go ahead and save it. Control S. I'm going to save this as start. Save it as the start blend file. And then, okay, now looking at it again, we need to make it look a little bit more like a block of ice. So one thing we want to do is tab into edit mode with the cube selected, and let's there, with the cube selected, tab into edit mode, and then we're going to hit subdivide over here, and then number of cuts, going to raise that all the way up to 10, and then don't mess with smoothness, but where it says fractal, let's change this value up a bit. Let's go wild with it. Something like that. And inner vertex is fine. Okay, now let's set this, let's tab out of edit mode, set the shading to smooth shading, and then let's go to sculpt mode and do a little sculpting. Let's change our brush to clay, strength all the way up to 1, and hit subtract. We want to go to subtract, and now we want to just kind of play around with this a bit. Let's make this disappear on the bottom here. That's good enough. Let's make it just want to make it imperfect, so that way it won't look like a perfect cube. It'll look like a melted block of ice. Okay, that's good enough, I think, for now. Looks a little rough, but when it renders it won't, or it shouldn't. Another thing I want to do under the materials is something I forgot to do before, and I want to set the mirror reflectivity up, and I'm going to make it at a 0.4, 0.44, something like that, 0.48, it doesn't matter. Just somewhere in there so it's not too reflective, but just enough. Leave the color at white and everything else default. And also under shadow, let's turn on receive transparent. That might help some on the shadowing. And we can also do that with our backdrop. Set that at receive transparent. Okay. And now I'm going to re-render this and pause it and see what it okay. Here's the final result. Looks pretty decent. I think I'm going to go with that. It'll pass for a block of ice. Okay, let's see. Now it's time to go ahead and add our monkey. So Shift A, Mesh, and go down to Suzanne the monkey. We'll add her. Set smooth shading on, wherever it is, there it is. Rotate 90 on the X axis, so it's facing the camera. Okay, now what we want to do is let's size her down a little bit, and then we're just going to get into dynamic paint here. One thing we want to do, what dynamic paint does in this instance, what we're going to do is we're going to make the cube. You need two objects to do dynamic paint. One, you need to make a brush, and the other, you need to make a canvas. And in this case, the cube is going to be the brush, and the monkey is going to be the canvas. So when the monkey touches the cube, the paint will spread from the cube onto the monkey itself. It will spread the texture over. So the way this works is, let's select our cube first and go over here to our physics tab and select dynamic paint, and we want this one to be a brush since it's the cube. Add brush, and we have a couple options here. One we could use the object material color, but that's not what we're going to do. That would actually use the textures that we applied to this cube, and you would think initially, oh, that's what you want, but that is not what you want. What we're going to do is we're going to select our own color here, and we're going to make this color a black color. Okay, and then we're going to select under dynamic paint source where it says mesh volume. We want mesh volume and proximity. That way, when the monkey doesn't even have to touch the cube to start being affected by it. It just needs to get within a certain proximity. And the distance that we're going to set that to is a 0.3. So once it starts getting within a 0.3, I believe, blender units, then it will start painting onto the monkey. And we want to set the fall off at constant. And we should be, everything else should be default. Leave everything at default. Okay, and now let's go to our monkey, select dynamic paint, and this time add canvas. Now we got a couple of choices here where it says vertex. That's vertex paint, but we want to use an image sequence, so we're going to bake it out to an image sequence. Leave the resolution at 256. That's fine. Anti-aliasing, that stops the blockiness. It smooths it out like on the edges. And let's see, the start frame is 1 and it ends at 250, that's fine because that's what we're going to use, just default 250 frames. Surface type, we want to leave that at paint. Wet map drying, we're going to adjust that, but just not yet because I want to demonstrate to you what that does, why that's important. See, dynamic paint output, we will use that, but not just yet. Dynamic paint initial color, we want to use that as well. And what this is, right now it's selected at none, but we want to select color and we want to leave it at default white. So that makes the monkey white, and then the cube will paint black onto a white surface. So our canvas will be white and our brush will be black paint. And that's what we want, black on white. Okay, let's see, dynamic paint effects. We want, under that, we want to use spread. So select use spread, and we'll turn this all the way up to 5. That'll make it spread fast. You can set it up to 10, but we're going to put it at 5. But you can only set it at 10 if you type it in. You can't scroll up to 10 for some reason. I don't. And maybe it doesn't even do anything. I don't know if it changes anything after 5, but I've done it through experimenting. And oh, okay. We need to UV unwrap our monkey here because it will not be affected otherwise. So let's go ahead and set some seams for the monkey. Let's go over here and select UV editing, and I'm gonna drag this over here so you, and change this to our property panel so I can show you under this, just in case you're not familiar with UV unwrapping and UV maps. When we unwrap it, it will set it on a layer. This is right here where it says UV maps. These are our layers. You can have several UV map layers that you want. We're only going to have one, and you can hit the plus button for that, or when you unwrap it, it'll add one. Let's go ahead and with the cube select, or not the cube, we want the monkey. Where's the monkey? There's our monkey. In fact, let's hide. Let's go to our outliner here a minute, and let's hide the cube, and let's hide the plane so it won't be in the way. And we'll change this back to properties. And I'm only doing the properties panel over here so you can see if you're not familiar with UV unwrapping already. Tab into edit mode, and what we want to do is we want to take off backface calling. Okay, what we want to do is select in line select mode. Let's hold down Alt and select that, and it'll select that whole edge loop there. Okay, just like that. So now this isn't the best way to unwrap this Suzanne, but this is good enough for what we need to do here. So scroll down here to mark seam, and then we want to select around the eyes. Alt select that edge loop there, and select this line here as well because it didn't get selected. Select Shift Alt select this, Shift select this line, Shift select that line, Shift Alt select this line, and mark seam. So we got our seam around there as well, around the eyes. And now we want to Shift or Alt select this edge loop here, and Shift Alt select this edge here, and mark a seam. Okay, now that we've marked a seam, when we unwrap it, it will cut it apart where the seams are. Gonna unwrap. Sorry, gotta select the whole thing. A to select it all, and unwrap it, and now it unwraps it like that. And that should be good enough for what we need. There may be some overlapping areas, but it really doesn't matter. Don't have to go into too much detail with this. Okay, so now let's and just in case you're not familiar with it, you see it added a UV layer here called UV map. Now you can rename it whatever you want. We're going to leave it at default, it doesn't matter. Okay, now go back to our default viewport, and where am I? Oh, right here. Make sure you're out of edit mode, tab out of edit mode, and then you can select right here your UV map. And that's the layer we want it to bake onto. And we only need to bake the paint map, we don't need a wet map. And now I'm going to leave the time for wet map drying alone at the moment. But let's turn our cube back on. And the way this works is we have to actually, if we just bake this image now, not much would happen. Let me open this up here a minute. See. Yeah, I believe it'll be under. Let's see. If we were baking it now, it will bake, but it won't really have any results. And it should be putting it. I'll cancel it. Okay, there we go. Under dynamic paint, we'll have some images in here. There we go. And you can see they're all white. The images don't have any anything to them really. You can kind of see the outline of the monkey where we UV unwrapped it. It's pure white there. But other than that, there's no effect to it. So what we want to do is we've got to get this thing, the monkey, to touch the cube. And once it does that, then the paint will spread from the cube, which is a brush. It will spread all over the monkey. So what we want to do is animate this monkey here a minute. So let's go ahead and set a keyframe I, because we're on the, oh, I'm on the wrong frame, sorry. Alt I, delete that. Make sure you're set at frame 1, and then Alt, or set a location keyframe, and then move up to frame, let's say 15, and then set another keyframe, I, location. So now, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Gotta go over in here and make the ear touch the, it just needs to touch the cube. Okay, now set location keyframe. So now, if we play this, we'll see it, boom, touches. Alright, and at this moment, the paint will roll over onto the monkey. So let's go ahead and bake that, and I'll show you what it does. And I'll let this bake, and then I'll come back to it. So I'm going to pause the video right now. It is done baking. Let's look at the result here. Okay, you can see as I scroll down here, it gets bigger and bigger, more black showing. But after a certain point, it stops, and the black doesn't continue to go on. And just to demonstrate that a little bit more for you, because this is going to be our texture file. Here it is. I'll just keep scrolling through. frame 24, 26, 78, you can see the black spreading, and that's the result we want. And it keeps going until it gets to a certain point, and then it will stop. Okay, it stopped clear back at a frame like 60, and it's not really spreading too much now. It's slowed down pretty much, and here we are at frame 120. It has changed a whole lot. So that's the issue, and this is why we need to adjust that value over there with our wet map drying. Because what's happening is the paint is going on to the ear and then spreading throughout the monkey, but then it dries and it doesn't continue to spread. So we to change this, and I'm going to change it to the highest value, and that's 10,000 is what I just experimented with this. I may not be doing this completely right, but this is how I've found to work around issue. I don't know, maybe there's something I'm doing wrong, but or something I'm leaving out, but even this does not do it perfectly, so we're going to have to do a little bit more of a workaround, and that is what I do is, since it seems to stop around frame 60, if we set another keyframe at say frame 55 for the monkey, and then let's move up to frame maybe 100. And we're just going to move the monkey in just a bit. Maybe right about there. And you just have to experiment with it to get it just right. And then we'll go all the way up to frame 250 and move the monkey in right about there and set another keyframe. And we're not going to keep these keyframes. We're going to delete them in the end. But we're just doing this just so we can get our texture map. So it'll look like this. Stop there for a little bit, and we get up to frame 55, and then it'll move in a little bit more. And as it moves, it will create more paint onto the surface and spread further. And I think this might do it. So I'm going to go ahead and bake another map, and we'll see if this does the result we need. So I'll go ahead and pause the video again. Okay, well, this didn't quite work. It's getting better, but it's not quite there. Like if I double click this, as you can see, it is spreading more. But if I skip to the end result, the last frame, frame 250, as you can see, they're still white. It didn't fill in completely. It should have filled in right here, and it hasn't. So it's a simple fix. Just all we have to do is just at the last frame, frame 250, just move the monkey in a bit more. Set it right there, maybe, and not too much. Don't want to go too quick, but and just redo it again. And it's just a matter of trial and error. It's the way I've found it to be, anyway. Hopefully, well, let's try this and see what this does. So I'm going to pause it again. Alright, here's the final result. I've moved it in a little bit more. I had to tinker with it some more. As you can see, it starts off like this. Starts getting darker and darker. So finally it fills all the way in. There's a little bit right there that didn't fill in, but you can go into GIMP or something and paint that in if you want, fill it in the rest of the way, or just make the whole thing black. Doesn't really matter. Just make the final image that you do a black image. Okay, that's good enough for now. I've saved it as it is right now, and this will be the start blend file as you see it right now, and then you can just follow the tutorial along the rest of the way and do all the other adjustments if you like. So now what we want to do is go ahead and let's delete these keyframes. So with frame 250, select Alt and I, delete that keyframe. Select that frame 100, Alt I, delete keyframe, Alt I. Okay, now the only keyframes we're going to leave is the first two where it touches, and then what we want it to do, let's say frame 20, let's say frame, and then frame 25, let's bring it back and set another keyframe. So it should do this. It should go boom and okay. Now we want to set our material. We're pretty much done with dynamic paint. You can even X this off if you want. It really doesn't matter. We don't need it anymore because we've made our maps. So and by the way, just in case I forgot to mention it to you, on the canvas here, when you select your output, dynamic paint, before you bake it, you can select your directory here where you want to save those image files. They're right now I put them in PNG format. So you make sure you know the directory that they're saved into. Also, when baking, you might notice this thing that says substeps, and what this is it when it calculates each frame, it can calculate in between frames too, and it makes for smoother transitions on some things. But in this case, we don't really want that because it just slows it down. It's fine without using any substeps, and that will slow down your baking time too. The more substeps you use, because that's for in between every frame. If you have 5 substeps, let's say, between frame 1 and frame 2, you have 5 steps it's got to calculate, and then between 2 and 3, it's got to calculate another 5 steps. So it increases the baking time exponentially. All right. Okay, on our monkey, new material. Let's name it monkey, because it's always a good habit to name your materials. Okay, now we want to set our transparency and set the alpha all the way down, ray trace. Set this also at 2.5, and we can set it to monkey so you can see that. You can also turn on the mirror if you want. I'm not going to turn it on in this case. Don't really think we need it. Let's go ahead and turn on receive transparent under shadow, and which probably isn't 100% necessary, but I just like if there's if I do anything with bounce lighting or anything where I need it to come through from one transparency to the other. I want the light to shine that's inside here to reflect on that a little bit. But okay, anyway, I'm digressing. Let's go to your texture panel, new texture, and on this first one, what we want to do is go to image or movie, select both, get our monkey there. What we want on this one is take off. Let's open up our image first. So open, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to the cache dynamic paint where all our images are selected, or all our images for there, yeah, our texture images. Okay, and hit A to select all, and as you can see, this is what we want. And then go ahead and open image, and change this to image sequence. And now, based on what frame you are on, you can see it will change up here too. But it's only set at 100 frames, so we need to set this at 250 frames. And now we should be good. Now if you change the frame, as you see, it gets darker and darker. Change it up here, you're going to have a lot more white. And let's just make sure our things lined up here. Looking good. Okay, now what we want this to do is we want this to first of all, before we do that, let's go to mapping and go to UV map, and then of course our layer is UV map layer, and we can leave that at flat. And now it is following the UV map for the monkey head that we unwrapped earlier, which is what we want. Okay, now under influence, to affect the alpha channel. That way, you can see there, it will turn clear anywhere that the black is. When the black covers it, that will make it turn clear. And if there's no black, all white, it should be a solid color. We also want it to affect the specularity, the intensity, and the hardness. So to make it a little shinier and as it turns clear. And if we were to render this image right here, let's shift and B and just box select the monkey head. That way we're not rendering anything more than just the monkey head itself. And at frame 98, it looks like this. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Let's re-render it and see what it looks like. There we go. As you can see, the portions of it that are turning clear. And another thing, let's go back to our diffuse color, and let's set the diffuse color for the monkey. Let's set this diffuse color at the same thing we did before, blue. And okay, we got our index of refraction set at 2.5. Everything looks fine there. Could turn this down a little bit. Okay, now let's see what it looks like. Okay. Now we want to go back to our textures and yeah, add a new texture. So select this one down here. We're just going to follow the same texture as the one right above it, but then we're going to hit this number 2 here because it shows 2 users, and we'll make this an independent user. So basically we're just copying the data that was used before. We're not going to use color. In fact, we're not going to use anything here. We are going to make this a stencil. And what the stencil does is it just stencils out anything for the next layer. So when we add a new texture in the hierarchy here, the one above it will stencil things out so we can basically mask things off. I'll just show you here. We want to make sure we turn RGB to intensity up or on, and turn the color to white. And then what we want to do is hit this negative here because we want it to be a negative image. So that's on the second texture. Remember that. Now on the third one, we're going to add our the same image we used before, and let's make this an independent user as well. So anything we change won't affect the other one. But this will be this is our cracked texture, and it will affect the normals just like it did on the cube. So let's set it up at a 0.34, something like that. And now let's render it and see what it looks like. And I will pause it and come back to it. Okay, you can see this here, it doesn't look very good. For one thing, the mask factor is not working. And I think that's because I forgot to put the UV mapping on. And also, this texture here doesn't look right, and that's because I forgot to crop it. So, let's go back to our stencil first. And let's go under image mapping, not image mapping, mapping, and go to UV and select our layer, which is the only layer, so by default it would select that anyway, but it's just a good habit to get into. Leave it flat. Okay, and then that's it for the stencil. Now the stencil is mapped right, and now on our cracked texture we want to let's see here, we want to change the under image mapping. Oh, it's already at 0.3. Okay. Huh. That should be right then. Maybe I just... Okay, let me go ahead and re-render this, and we'll see how this looks. I'm going to pause it again. Alright, this texture here, I'm not too happy with it. I think I've got the normal set up too high. So, let's see, on this cracked texture, let me go back to the influence. I don't remember what I had it set at. I can't remember. I may have had it set at 1. So I'm going to set it way down to 1 and see what that looks like. Re-render it. And I think that looks a little better. I can tell already. But they just have to let it run its course, and as it starts to freeze the entire thing, see how it looks. But that looks better. But you'll just have to adjust the settings and till you get something you like. But this is pretty much all there is to it. And then now when you render it, is you render each frame, because that's that frame there, and then let's just move up some and re-render it. Move up to frame 180. A lot more of it should be transparent now, or turning to ice at frame 180. Okay, so you can see it goes from that to eventually to that until the whole thing is froze. I'm gonna Shift A. I'm gonna add another point lamp and make sure it's inside the monkey. Looks like inside the monkey. And then just shift select the monkey and then Control P and parent the lamp to the monkey. That way when the monkey moves, the lamp will follow. Yeah. Now let's go up to frame 250 and let's render it now and see what it looks like. Different things will give it different effects. So you play around until you get something you like. I might like that better, I don't know. Okay, and let's look at the other result. Yeah. Yeah, I think I do like that a little better. And then let's move this. Let's move this lamp. Oh, of course that won't matter. What matters is this. Let's move it that direction. Okay. Let me re-render that. See if that changes anything. Well, the main thing is you get the point. I'm going to render the full scene. I'm going to go ahead and render the full scene here. And let's Shift B again and select the entire scene. I'll pause it, I'll render it and pause it, and let you see the final result. This is the final result here. I don't like it, so I decided to change some things. So over here in the textures panel for the monkey, if you go to this middle texture here, that's the stencil texture, and if you go ahead and put on select mirror and ray mirror and put the values at about 0.43 0.44, something like that on both of them, somewhere around that. They don't have to be exact. And then also under your materials tab for the monkey, also make sure you have mirrors checked, but reflectivity all the way down. And that way the texture, this stencil texture, will affect where it reflects. And then the result, I've already rendered it, and it will look like this, the final result. And I'm pretty satisfied with that because it's very similar to the ice block over here. So I decided to go ahead and use the mirror. And I think that looks pretty decent. But you understand the proof of concept. You know how to do it now. And hopefully this will help. So I will leave a link in the description of where you can download the .blend files and the textures. And well, that should be it.